Right, hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Dundee Show podcast. We've had 4 weeks off, have we, Steve?
Yep, definitely.
We needed that. But yeah, I've been looking forward to this one. This is the best one we've done, I would say, today. Would you agree?
Definitely.
To introduce the guy, when I was a Dundee fan, when I first time I ever went in Dens, I was about 95. I think he signed the 95, I checked that day. He played. The first time I ever seen Dundee win a league in '97, he was in that team. It was one of my favourite teams as a kid. Obviously, moving on to the Benetti days, he was in that team. He hit the post in the final, and everybody remembers that. Everybody remembers the noise of that hitting the post. But yeah, he's something that we've spoke about on this podcast many times was the Defiant season, and it's the man who put on his superhero cape and saved the club from doom, basically, I would say.
Why is he known as Sir Barry Smith?
Yeah, Sir Barry Smith. How's it going, Barry?
Ah, good. That's some intro we want to live up to now.
Oh, mate, like, I always say it, I've said it on this podcast, I've said the thing, you and Rob Douglas saved that club. Like, we wouldn't be here speaking about half the stuff we speak about Dundee if it wasn't for you. So, proper honour that you've came and done this, mate, thank you.
No, thank you.
But we'd just like to take it right back to the start. So, where were you born and what year?
I was born in Paisley in 1974. Grew up pretty much with a ball at my feet. My dad played junior level. I had an older brother and older sister, and they all used to go across the park and play football. That's what, was a big game on a Sunday across the park. And that's where, pretty much started playing football.
So what age did you start kicking a ball at?
I can remember I was about 4, I think I was primary 1. And my brother was playing for the primary 5 team, and because I used to go to every game, they threw me on for 5 minutes one time, and that's the first time I ever remember playing real football.
Do you remember what age you were at that time?
I was 4.
4, you got put on a game when you were 4?
I was primary 1. But it's just, I just went to every game because my brother was playing, and I think they just thought, let him go, and he's always kicking the ball at the side of the park, just throw him on for a couple of minutes, and I was a kid, I didn't think I touched the ball, but I was, just getting on and enjoying the experience of playing against older boys, I guess,
That's alright.
Big question, what team did you support?
I grew up following St Mirren. They were my local team, and I followed them, home and away. My dad used to take us to there's a big sort of park, there's about 40 games going on, and then after they finished we'd go along to Love Street, watch the game there, and then head back up the road.
Because I was expecting you to say one of the other two, but I'm glad that you said, I had an idea that you probably would be a St Mirren supporter, which is good.
Aye, again, they were the local team, and enjoyed going and watching them. Was it the cup final 1987 when we beat the across the road?
Exactly. European matches as well?
Aye, I think I can remember going to one, but memory's quite vague in that. So
They played after they won the cup that year. They played Mechelen, and unfortunately they were very close to getting beat. They were very close to winning it, and they ended up getting beat, I think, by the odd goal, and then Mechelen went on to win the UEFA Cup that year.
Is that right?
So St Mirren did very well against them. The boys that went on to win it, so football historian. Do try.
Do you remember, what was the terraces like in the 80s down Love Street?
They were quite rough. The north end is where, we never, like myself and my dad never went there, but that's where the sort of
lively boys were.
The noise was coming from. We tend to just either nick in the away end, because it was a big stadium at the time, it was all standing, and stand at the back, or just go in the Love Street end.
Do you remember the stand that they built? The new they put that one stand up behind the goal, and it was the steepest thing you never go to that one. It was like that. And it was a dangerous stand. You were just walking down the stairs to get in your seat. Metal, but it was the only one stand that they'd built, and the rest of it was still that stand. And I liked Love Street. Love Street was a traditional old ground, but it was big.
Aye, and I mean, they also moved through there, but that's where I grew up watching football, you know, so I was, you know, I still remember the team that I kind of watched. Alec Beckett, right back. Steve Clark was actually in that team as well at one point, Nonny McWhirter, you know, so Billy Abercrombie, you know, a lot of good players. So, again, local team, go and watch them.
Yeah, it's alright, it's the way it should be, is it?
Absolutely.
What, we're talking football boots off camera, do you remember what your first pair of football boots was?
It would probably been Adidas, I would imagine. I do remember having a pair of Patrick, I don't know if you remember them, but
Yeah.
they'd their own special studs that like you could only buy Patrick studs for Patrick boots. And I think my mum was demented because we could never fund the studs, so she was always chasing about trying to get a pair. But in the West Coast, a lot of the pitches were ash, so you wore aluminiums for the grass pitches, but because mouldies weren't really a thing at that point, you used to have to change your studs every second game if you were playing Nash. They used to have rubber studs, and you used to have to change them. And I always remember my dad saying, make sure you put butter in so it goes in easier. You know, I can remember sitting there, you know, changing the studs, but that was part of growing up. You know, made sure I polished my boots before the game. It was a kind of discipline at that time as well.
My dad used to throw me in the bath after football with my boots to clean them every week, like religiously. I used to sit there with this bit of muddy water, just thought it was how it was done, to be fair.
When you're playing on an ash pitch, you remember that Mould-Master mitre ball? Was it in the middle of winter? You got that on the side of your face, or the side, the sting that came off, and they were dimpled.
I used to leave dimples in your leg.
You thought of that, you know.
So what was high school like?
I was quite good academically as well. I stayed on to 6 year, but a lot of the time was taken up playing football. You know, every play time you go, you were out playing football, and we had a no bad school team at the time as well. So it was pretty much taken up with football, although I was still managed to get some education as well.
That's alright.
What was your first team? Was it a school team or?
It would have been the primary school team, would have been my first team. My first boys club team was Renfrew Waverley, and they then changed their name to St Mum Boys Club. I was only there for a year and I moved to Barhead Boys Club, and I spent maybe about 4 or 5 years there. We won the Scottish Amateur, or the Scottish Juvenile Cup with them. Played a team called Tower Hearts, I think they were for Drumchapel or something like that they were. And we always played against them in the league, and it was always a good game. Aye, it was quite one of the games I'd enjoy because there was a lot of tackling involved.
When did you sort of realise that you were good at the position that you ended up playing in?
I don't think I ever realised. I just wanted to play football, right. And I think, you know, I always get moved between midfield and defence. So actually that probably worked out in my favour because you get to learn different positions and you get to learn, you know, different things. So I sort of grew up as a centre back, played midfield, and then I think a lot of folk thought it was too small to be a centre back, which probably correct to a certain degree, and I got moved to right back, so I ended up playing there.
What was your favourite position to play?
I didn't really care. As long as I get a game on a Saturday, I'd have played anywhere. For the school, there was one season I played with the high school team and I scored 30 goals playing as a striker. But I would put that down to the poor opposition we were against. I don't think it was anything to do with my ability to score goals, as you'll probably see in my statistics later on.
When did you realise there was people interested in you? Who was the first teams that sort of came calling?
But at Barhead I used to, like, I wouldn't say go on trials because I was never really, I didn't really want to sign for anybody. I was enjoying playing with my pals at the boys club. I went and trained with Motherwell, I went in and trained with Rangers, I went in and down at Liverpool. So there's a lot of clubs. Funny story about the Rangers, I went in my first day's training, so my mum had packed my bag I went to school, after school got picked up, went up to Ibrox. They used to train at the Albion, which was across the road, just near the car park. And again, that was red ash. And it was raining, it was lashing. So we come into the Ibrox afterwards, we're on the way, and I looked at my bag, and what's my mop packed? A green towel. So I'm then going, oh no, do I go for a shower? So I just threw my clothes on, just jumped in my clothes, back out, and I'm going, my dad's going, have you no showered? I'm like, look what my mum packed. She said, packed a green. I was like, I can't be doing that. So I packed my bag, that was a lesson learned, packed my bag for myself for that day on.
You think it wouldn't matter, but it would.
Oh, down there it would. I think if that was the case, it would probably, if they'd seen it, they'd probably just have told us no bother coming back. I spent a good couple of months there, like for whatever reason, like Stoke going, and the one team that I actually never went in and trained with was St Mum, which I found quite strange. Looking back, it's quite strange given that I was a local boy and a couple of the boys in my high school team were playing with them, and I never got the chance. So it was, looking back, I'd have loved the chance to play with St Mum. Just
you know yourself with being a manager and a coach, yourself all these different clubs. It's you could have boys on the books or just on trial and sort, and you maybe don't fancy when you didn't see something, then they go on and do it, and they're good players, but you maybe don't see it, and it's maybe what the St Mirren were like with you, you know, maybe you maybe didn't come on the radar or whatever, you know.
I was straight. I mean, I signed with Celtic and I think it was Easter Friday. I went up and signed S-forms, which was back in the day that you signed, and the Tuesday when I went back to school, St Mirren were waiting on us, which I thought was
bittersweet.
I think they sort of were, they'd heard I'd signed with Celtic and then thought, oh, we better go and try and sign them. At that time it was too late.
But that's what happens with, as soon as you get your name get circulated with Rangers or Celtic, then everybody else moves in, kind of.
How did it feel to sign for Celtic at that time? This about 91, yeah? 91.
No, I signed S-form in about 88 or something like that. I was there for S-form for 2 years. I mean, it's a massive club, you know, and I always, John Kelman was the chief scout at the time, and it was him that signed me as an S-form, and he gave me a fiver and says, go and make sure you get your mum a box of chocolate. You know, she's going to look after you. And, you know, it was just a wee thing, you know, but we didn't have to do that. But yeah, a tremendous feeling. Just, you know, it's a massive club, and to get the opportunity even to be an S-form was a big thing at that time. It was probably the right time for me at that point to, you know, I was still at S-forms were good because you still played with your boys team at the weekend. You just trained with Celtic, you know, maybe I think it was only once a week, and it was a Tuesday night, but you still got to train with your own boys team. The other 2 nights if you're training 2 nights, so it worked out well both ways.
So there's more football. Really.
Aye, yeah, but you're still able to play with your pals, you know, which I think when you get into these academies now, you're taken away, you know, I know there's success stories, but you're taken away from the guys that you grew up with, and I think that's quite sad. You know, you're not able to just go and play football with your pals as well. You can still be affiliated to a senior club, you know, but I think it takes away some of the enjoyment. Then when you maybe get cast aside at 13, 14, a lot of them don't go back and play football.
It shatters them, yeah. We've spoken about it on the podcast before. Like, you'd sign them as young as 6. That puts some of the pressure on them at like such a young age. Yeah. You know what I mean? You hear about the boys that are meant to be amazing and they quit when they're about 14 because they're just sick of it.
Well, look at the Simon Murray when we had the chat with him. He was there was a really weird way. He didn't get signed junior till late on, and then he didn't get signed in the senior till in his 20s, and he basically said he had the time of his life because he was playing exactly the way he wanted to play with his mates, didn't get it coached out of him, and cause you just said that they end up getting a lot of it coached out of them, which is not great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it would have been a good experience for you. Did you have your family were the Celtic or Rangers, or were they mostly St Mirren?
I'd probably say my dad was Celtic.
He'd have been happy then.
Yeah, he was delighted, and a lot of family members were Celtic. I wouldn't say they supported Celtic, but if they had to choose, they would pick Celtic. But he was hard on me when I was growing up. He wanted the best for me. So maybe to see all that hard work that he'd put in, taking us to games and stuff, was probably a proud moment for him as well,
It's not something that happens every day, is it? And
No,
something
no.
every parent gets to experience. So yeah, I'd imagine it would have been, definitely.
That's the thing, you've mentioned that about your dad, and he's put all the hard work in. I had my nephew, he was the same. He was at the Grove Academy, and then he went to Wraith Rovers with a few guys, and then ended up at Dundee. And then for that, going through that period, it was his mum and dad and us were travelling all over the country, and then going to training. When he was at Wraith Rovers especially, he was having to train in Bathgate on a Wednesday night, and there was no help. He just in the car, and they would take him, and they would expect them to foot the bill for everything. So it's quite difficult, and it's people don't really seem to realise when they say, "Oh, well, my son played professional football," but they didn't realise the actual work that goes in.
Definitely. I mean, my parents didn't drive either, so all the time it was trains and buses going on to Glasgow. It's not that far, but it's far enough, to travel. So you're always grateful to your family, for trying to look after them and get the best they want for you. They'll do the same for my wee one as well.
So when did you get your first start for Celtic then? When your old boy got to actually see you put on the shirt and come out?
It was actually a late call up. I trained with the reserves on the Friday. I think it was only just turned 17 maybe. Trained with the reserves. Back in the day, the reserves played on the Saturday at 2 o'clock. The first team played at 3 o'clock, and it was basically a reserve fixture, so a reverse fixture. So the Falkirk's second team would come to Parkgate, and the first team would go to Brockville, as it was at the time. And I got a phone call on the Friday night, you're not going to the reserves, you're coming in with the first team. So it was quite short notice, so didn't have a lot of time to think about it. Went up to Parkgate, got on the bus, and I come on as a sub, I think it was about 40 minutes in. Wasn't a particularly good day. I come on at left back, which one of the positions I'd never played before. Come on at left back, and Falkirk actually beat us that day at Brockville. So for me it was brilliant getting that debut. But obviously Celtic were going through a hard time, there was a lot of problems.
This is when Rangers were dominating, eh?
Yeah. Celtic were they had a lot of good players, Paul McStay, Peter Grant, a lot of experienced pros, John Collins, that you don't know why they'd sort of fell. But was it just that Rangers had better players? Probably. Rangers had a phenomenal team at that time. But yeah, great experience just making my debut. I think
So you were 17 when you made your debut, yeah?
Yeah.
That's young playing first team for Celtic.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Must have been a bit of a sleepless night in '94 after you got told that on the...
Again, it was short notice, so you don't really have that much time to think about it. It was just get the head down and make sure you're ready. But I never expected to start, just because it was called in, and knew that the two, all the defenders were fit. So
Did your family come up to watch it?
My mum never really, she hated going and watching me, even for a young age, hated it. But my dad and a couple of cousins went up, and I think my cousin was probably going anyway, but my dad, got up and got his corn, which he'd never had before. So it's brilliant, it's good times.
Yeah, proud moment. You had 19 caps for Celtic, is that right?
It was around about 19 games I sort of started or come on over 5 years. So I never really I always found that I get into the team at the end of the season, and then either they brought in whole new players, all the manager changed, so I never really get the opportunity to get a real run at the start of a season. Went on a couple of pre-season trips, but then as soon as we come back, get put back into the reserves. So I played in 2 firm games, which again, no everybody gets the opportunity to do. And
What was that like?
that's horrible. One of the games was at Ibrox and there was no Celtic fans, and it was brutal.
It's horrible going to Ibrox as just a fan. Imagine playing on it, man. It's like
We drew 1 each, but it was horrible. Listen, I'm one that I can switch off to fans. You just become immune to it, but when there's nobody actually supporting, it becomes quite. It's just constant.
Intimidating.
So yeah, good experience. Because I don't think I'd played any worse than that. Atmosphere. It was just a real horrible atmosphere. The second goal from game, I get stuck in a waltzer playing against Brian Laudrup, and I couldn't get off the waltzer. I couldn't get close to him.
He was some player, was he?
He was brilliant. Just couldn't get close to him. He was.
Well, what an experience playing against him, you know what I mean? That Rangers team at that time, some of the players they had.
I think their strikers were Hateley and McCoy that day. Probably Butcher and Terry Hurlock playing the unbelievable team.
Terry Butcher would have still been England captain at this time, right?
Probably. They had a real good squad.
Hope you stayed away from that Hurlock, he was a right nut job.
I couldn't get close enough to Laudrup there, mine Hurlock.
So let's take it to the good times. So you signed for Dundee in '95. Was it Jim Duffy that signed you at that time?
Aye, December '95. I think it was just after the League Cup final when Aberdeen had beat us
2-0.
2-0.
That was my first taste a loss.
I get called in by Tommy Burns was the manager, and he says, "Listen, I think it's time you moved on." And at that time, I wanted to stay, but also wanted to play first team football. So I went and met Jim. He was like, "Listen, you come up here, you play first team football, see how it goes." He says, "I've watched you, for however long." He says, "And I like the way you play." And once I spoke to Jim, I thought, you know what, time's right. Let's go and try something, get first team football and see where it takes us. You look at it, now it's probably the best decision that was ever made for us by Tommy Burns. He knew that I was going to have a successful career. It just probably in heart of hearts I wasn't at that level at Celtic, like to play consistently. But I found my home, and Dundee's like where I call home now, so that starts back in December '95.
And you certainly moved on up a level as well. Look at what you ended up. You played that many games for Dundee, and you played consistently well in some really, really good Dundee teams.
Well, one thing I always remember, you were the only Scottish name sometimes in that Dundee team. He was he? The consistent, well, Stephen Boyack as well maybe at the time, but Barry Smith was you were always the consistent Scottish guy we had in that team.
I think, when you look back, when I come up, Geordie Shaw and Jerry Britton were the 2 strikers, and Tam McQueen, Roddy Manley were on the team. That's who I used to travel with. So I travelled with them for a couple of years. Then when we moved on to, it was James Grady, Eddie Annand, big Jamie Langfield. We used to travel together, so it was funny in the car, but through the seasons they kept dwindling away, and it ended up when the Italians came I was travelling myself, and I thought I need to move up, I just need to, I was getting home, and by the time I was getting home I was going to bed, and then I was getting back up and I was coming back up to Dundee. So at that point, I think it was in 2000, I went, you know what, I'm going to move up. And
it's a lot of travelling
that was torture.
The thing was, you played in some, you're talking about Jerry Britton and George Shaw. Even when you came in that team, there was good players in that team, and then the 97-8 that you were talking about when they won the league, that was a good team. Gavin Reyes and all these guys all coming through. And
that's when what was it, 9? I think it was 8 or 9. That's the first time I got a season ticket. I loved that team. like James Grady, Eddie Allen, and everyone.
Darius
That run.
Adamczyk was still there as well.
Yeah, he went to Rangers, did he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a player he was as well.
Eddie Allen was scoring that. Remember when he was it a head, one goal or something when he won the league?
At Kirkcaldy, yeah.
Something daft like that. He scored the header. I remember everybody going nuts.
You remember who scored the goal against us that day? And he gave the fans abuse, and it was never forgotten until he ended up the manager.
That was 9.
Think about who it would be. He ended up the manager.
Well, he got abuse. It could be anybody.
Hartley.
Oh god.
He scored the goal that day, and he gave the Dundee fans abuse that day. Yeah, I remember him doing it.
Actually, I remember the day we won it. I get they were doing random drug tests. So as soon as we'd get back in the dressing room, I got hauled out to go and. So I missed a lot of the celebrations in the dressing room because
That's got to be difficult.
you know.
That's got to be a difficult thing for you to get put if you've not had any water or anything. It was a hot day that day as well, so you could be there for hours.
Well, we were. I think it was about 6 or 7 beers later. The guy says you can't have any more because it might not actually show up. You know, that you'll have too much alcohol in your system.
He was drunk that day.
But it was well worth the celebration. You know, like once I'd managed to, do the drug test, it was. I mean, it was party time for about a month after. It was,
It was brilliant. Remember the week after in Dens when you actually got the trophy out? Like, I was hunting for those photos a couple of months ago. Very hard to get when you were all on the pitch with the white fucking brewery straps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that day.
It's an iconic picture that day with you lifting the trophy that day, because it's still to this day. It's a great picture because it's the old white fucking brewery shirt you've got on. That day again, that was the second failure after we'd won the league that I'd seen in about 10 years, because we played Montrose after we'd won the league a few years before and absolutely got beaten for Montrose, and that day was a 1-1 draw with United that day, and we'd played rubbish for a while and then got back into it.
Well, I think I was suspended until that last game. I think they'd lost the 2 games prior to it. But I think I'd put that down to the boys were having a right good time, you know.
Do you remember the Firkin Brew? We had the white strip, the blue strip, we had the red strip, and we never won a game in the red strip.
I know, they get ditched.
That's a legendary strip.
It was actually Ayr United, which they come up with their white strip. They come up with their away strip to Dens that day, so it meant that we had to wear our away strip while we were lifting the trophy, which I thought was poor for them.
Yeah,
you know, there was no reason.
So that's why it was in the way.
Yeah, they come up with their away strip, which meant we had to wear our away strip, which wasn't in the script, you know.
Yeah, no, like I never really even thought of why they were in the away strip that day. To be fair,
this is badness.
Yeah, no, that's nuts.
Anything to throw you off, though, you know. That's what they do.
So, how long were we in the first division at that point for?
That one, we won the league in 90. Well, at that point we were doing a bit of the yo-yo stuff as usual, right? So we won the league in 91. Took us a wee bit of time. Won the league in 91, and then we stayed in, and then usual got relegated, and then I think it was only a matter of 95, 96. It wasn't one of the longest times, I don't think.
Because I was 9 when this team came up.
Yeah.
So I had a good consistent wee run in the SPL until I was about 16. We got relegated. So that's what I was sort of used to when I was younger. But that first season coming into the SPL, I remember did we not get Celtic or Hearts or something the first 2 games?
We didn't win a game. We didn't get a point in the game until we played Celtic. And it was a great game. It was the Italian guy who was playing. Did he not get sent off, or he put a bad Anoni, or what was his name?
Rico Anoni.
Yeah, or it was him that gave away we'd been getting beat, and it went in the last minute.
I remember we drew with Celtic and beat Hearts or something.
Yeah,
so I was like 10-year-old thinking this was like the golden age.
We beat Hearts. We beat Hearts that season 4 times, I think. Every time we played
them,
we beat them.
There's a story behind that as well. They'd won the Scottish Cup this season. We won the first division, and we were in Magaluf as you do, and we're in a pub, and they come in, and everybody was we're having a good time. And one of the Hearts players come over to us and he went, in front of all his teammates, there's 12 points for us this season. And everybody remembered that. and I don't know if it meant anything when it went on the pitch, but we took 12 points off of them, you know, and every time we beat them, somebody was in their dressing room celebrating, you know. That was just that team, in terms of team spirit, that team's probably, you know, as a player, was probably the best I played in. Really tight knit, really close. We've still got a group chat, the majority is that are, you know, we still keep in touch. I think we're trying to meet up quite soon, actually, just to, you know, for a catch up. You know, your James Grady, Eddie Annans, Dave Rogers, Big Brian Irvine, Jim McInally,
Ian Anderson as well.
Tommy Coyne played, did he not?
He played in the Premier League.
Yeah, he played in the
because that season I think they signed 4 for Motherwell, getting into the league. Signed Tam, Wally Faulkner, Sean McSkimmon, and the French guy, Garçon.
Garçon, yeah. Tommy Coyne, remember he came back, and everybody thought was the Messiah's coming back. And he missed the penalty against Aberdeen at the first game of the season, and he was never the same again. He kind of fell out of it, which was unfortunate because he was such a hero from the time before.
I was lucky. I played with, but Tam sort of dipped out in the Celtic reserves, and I was fortunate to play with him. Terrific striker. You know, when he came back every day, I think the expectation was he was still 20 odd. He wasn't, you know, he'd obviously aged a wee bit, but he's still a great finisher.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tight knit team, and I think that showed, because it was tough at the start of that season.
Yeah, the Celtic game was the turning point.
Yeah,
I think
we went to Dunfermline before that and get beat as well.
Yeah.
And I dropped out the team at that point, and then I think I come back in for the Celtic game.
Was that the season we had the guy Puniwachi years?
Aye, yeah.
And he wasn't very good, and I think he got destroyed against Dunfermline. And it didn't go very well. And it wasn't until that Celtic game then we turned it around, because we had the United game, which was a good one as well.
Being the tightest in that team, was that not the highest placing team as well? Is that right?
Yeah.
They've got to fifth.
Yeah, I think we went to a winter training camp, and when we came back, we never got beat, I don't think.
It was the game against Dunfermline across at East End Park, I remember, and we were kind of just above the relegation zone, and we got beat, and I think Darius Adamczyk got sent off that day, and I remember we were sitting in the car, me and the mates going back across to Dundee. I was sitting with my head in my hands, and my mate was driving. He says, "What's the matter?" I goes, "I don't see where we're going to get any more points." And then we never lost again, as you said. Went on that run, beating United at Tannadice and all that.
I think we ended up we played a few games at Tannadice that season, in the season, because
because the Rangers
stadium.
Match.
So is that the one where James Grady got the half volley?
Yeah, that's
earlier in the
that's earlier in the season. The game we played, because of the stadium, had to get
the stand spot.
Yeah, so we played Rangers at Tannadice, and we drew 1-1 with them, because it was Ian Anderson. I think he got a header. Ian Anderson, the smallest man on the park, and he got the header. But yeah, we started badly that season, and it just built and built, and it was amazing.
Was it that summer that Jockey got appointed?
Yeah, which I think in hindsight he probably seen it coming. Nobody else did, but Jockey, with the experience he's got, probably knew there was something happening. Because I always remember when we were in the winter camp, there was people sort of hanging about that nobody knew. It turns out it was, it wasn't Dario and Ivano, but it was sort of people that knew Dario and Ivano. So
if one of them showed up, who was it that got hit with the plate?
That was Ivano.
Yeah. That was a big talking point in the 90s, was it?
At Grimsby.
Was that the winter training camp? That was in Italy.
No, that one was in, I'm pretty sure it was Cyprus.
All right, okay, I remember that one as well, yeah. Because we did go to Italy one, I think, that was when Ivano was the manager, yeah.
We went a couple of times to, I think, Rimini, and the other place was up in the top of a mountain. That was brutal. I come back, my wife says, "What's happened to you? I'd lost that much weight." She says, "You look terrible." And it was like, the food was great food. and it was a beautiful hotel, but there was just very little of it. And back in the day, I don't know if you would get away with this nowadays, but like they used to do your fat percentage, and if you were over 12%, there was a table, and all the ones that were over 12% had to sit at that table, and they never get pudding. So while the rest of them were eating, ice cream, we had to sit and just watch.
That's a punishment.
I think I was like I don't know if it's my body composition, but I couldn't get under 12, but I just couldn't do that. But
So you never got any pudding.
But I mean, it didn't affect me. Like, I think it was something like 12.5% or something. It didn't affect me. I could run all day, you know, and I was fit. Obviously, different people it affects people differently, but it never really bothered me. You know, I always like led for the front at pre-season because I kept myself, you know, fit through close season. So it was when you look back, you wouldn't get away with that nowadays. There would be all sorts of HR over that, you know.
Just to politically correct nowadays, yeah. So what was it like when Jockey got punted and then the Italians came in? Was it like, because you see, I've seen an interview when they're in Vizocchi's with all the players and that, and like hardly any of them spoke English at all.
I mean, it was strange. Obviously, I was close to Jockey. I think Jockey's a terrific manager.
Stevie Campbell said he was the best manager he ever worked under.
You know, I think it's an actual shame that he's not involved anywhere in football now, because his knowledge is second to none. He's top notch. But so it came as a shock to me. The thing for me is that you've got to put your trust in Peter and Jimmy. They're the owners. They know what they're doing, or they've got a plan. Unfortunately, Bosman knackered the plan.
Yep.
But they were willing to try something that maybe never quite worked out the way they thought it would. But going back to when they came in, Dario spoke a lot of English. Ivano's English was all right, and they had a translator, Dario, another Dario.
He was a wee lad.
Aye, yeah. So he would translate anything that was getting said if it had to get translated. But the biggest problem was we were training at Cairdy at the athletics track, and the dressing rooms weren't big enough to hold the amount of players. So all the foreign boys were in one dressing room, and all the Scottish boys were in the other dressing room, plus the two Georgians who decided they wanted to be Scottish, you know. So that in itself created a wee distance between us, but I don't think you would know that on the pitch, because once we went on the pitch we were all professional, and it was just probably off the pitch where
You didn't feel that unity?
Aye, yeah. And Dario and Ivano, you know, and it's their choice. They spent a lot of time with the Italian boys and the Argentinians, and that's their choice. There's no issue with that. But if you're on the other side and you're not playing, because there's not a lot of Scottish boys were playing at that time, it can become an issue for them. My thought process was at the time, I'm just going to give everything I've got. If it's not good enough, then I've tried my best, you know, and fortunately it was good enough to keep myself
You were never
in
out the team. You were always in the team. It didn't matter who was in.
Yeah. Whereas I think a few of the other boys just went, nah, I'm not having the manager, which again, their choice, you know, and they probably went on and maybe done better things elsewhere. But I wanted to stay at Dundee, you know. I was happy, I was settled. If it wasn't to work out, I would just have went and played football somewhere else. You know, I don't worry about that type of thing, or I didn't worry about that type of thing.
For me, for the way I remember, like, the dynamic of the team changed greatly. I remember Artero came over when Jockey was still there. So he was Argentinian, was he?
Spanish, he was.
Spanish, yeah. And the next, like, obviously, all these names of all these players the next year, it's just like, who the hell's all this? I mean, when Caballero was at Arsenal, he was one of the ones that was known, but I can't really remember.
When Caballero and Sarah came, I mean, the first, I mean, it didn't take long to sort of, for the Dundee fans to feel all love for them, because we went to Kirkcaldy and the two of them scored.
I remember, I really loved Caballero, but I remember I met him I met him about 5 years ago. He didn't speak English then. Like, all he said to me was the photo, and that was it. So yeah, like I can see his point for that. You know what I mean?
It was funny, Carlo. I mean, sadly he passed away, but he was a terrific. He used to just send me texts, and it would just be like broken English. Barry, phone. You know, Barry, I come to Dundee. I'm me, you, manager. You know, things like that. But he was, I mean, he was a good guy, and he was, you know, good about the place. Georgie Nimzazi is probably the best I played with. He was incredible.
Some player as well.
You know, just actually, his English was okay, but I think see if he spoke fluent English because he was funny, and he never really. But by the time the joke came across, you know, there's tumbleweed going down the middle of the bus, you know. But he was a really good guy. He said we were getting back in the bus, and we used to have a couple of beers in the bus on the way back home. And he says, "I'm going to make vodka for you boys." So boys are like, "Aye, carry on, Georgie." And no, I think it was maybe about 2.5 months later, he's come on with this clear bottle, and he says, "Right, every day you can only take a cap." And he's pouring it, and honestly, it's the worst stuff I've ever tasted. It was like it must have been about 90% alcohol that he'd made himself, you know. But that's just the type. He just wanted to be one of the boys, you know. But on the pitch, brilliant.
It must have taken a hell of a lot of pressure off you at times, looking and what you must be just amazed that the players was in front of you.
Right through, you know. I've been lucky to play with a lot of good players, you know, right through. I always felt that one of my biggest attributes was that I knew what I was good at, and I always felt I was good at winning the ball and getting it to somebody better that was going to do something with it, you know. And I was quite happy doing that.
Yeah, very good attribute to have.
I knew my limits, you know. There's no shame in it. That's what I was good at. So use it to
go on and do a job, is it? You know what I mean? Definitely.
So what did you feel? What was the feeling in the dressing room with yourself when Mr. Canija started getting mentioned?
To be honest, I can't really remember the build up to it.
Caballero got injured in the United game.
Yeah, that's what kind of pushed that in. Yeah,
but you know, when he appears at Dens, you know, I grew up in Paisley. I mean, that's wild dream stuff. You know, you're thinking you're playing with somebody that played in a World Cup final. You know, as simple as that.
He seemed like a bit of a cool character. He sort of, I think he knew. He wasn't a balmy sort of person, but when you should see him walking about the ferry and that, I think he just enjoyed life, kind of thing.
Yeah, very humble, to the point where he's been he's played at the highest level, played all over the world, but he still took time. I always remember him taking time to speak to Stephen Milne and Graham Bain and put striker movement. They two were young kids, good strikers, and he took the time to go and he didn't speak English, but he took the time to get the translator to say, you know, show him what he wanted and how they could get better, and I think that shows everything, you know. He's pouring pints down the whole tune of not one after a derby win.
I call that one.
But I mean, he was fit as well for the age he was, but you know, you didn't want to go into the toilets before the game after him because he used to smoke something. He was smoking in the toilets. If you went in, the smell from it was ridiculous. But that's what got him going. You know, he just needed nicotine or whatever it was, rightly or wrongly. That's what he did. But he certainly performed in the park.
Remember after he signed the first game at Aberdeen? Remember the bench that day when you boys were playing at that point? But the bench was Mzadzi, Canija, Carranza, Keenashvili, and Willie Faulkner.
That's a strong bench, that.
Even with Willie Faulkner had come on as well, because he had that sort of. He ended up having a really good partnership with Canija. The two of them seemed to could read one another, you know.
I remember watching Bettle. First time I seen him play was at Tynecastle, and I think he scored a free kick that day, and he ran riot. I can't remember who it was, but on the line he chipped it right over the boy's head and caught on his foot again and kept going. He was some player.
Technically, Bettle was very good. You know, he wouldn't run the length of himself if he didn't have to, but technically he was brilliant. We used to do 4-minute kilometres, that was a pre-season, and it would build up. The first day you would do 1 kilometre, second day you would do 2 1 kilometres. So he was in my group, and the first time we sent him away, he was about a minute behind us. So the second time I went, right, you go out 30 seconds in front of us. We never caught him, because he was behind us, he just chucked it. See, because he was in front of us, he thought, I'm not going to let them catch us now. So we got there later, and Ivano's going, how's he beating you? He's going daft at us because he's thinking that Beto's outran us, and we're like, I don't know what to say here, because I don't want to stick him in, that we sent him 30 seconds away early. But he, again, on the pitch, he could do whatever he wanted with the ball.
Yeah, he was someone else. It's collegiate too, but the first game you mentioned at Aberdeen, he scored that game, did he?
Oh, unbelievable.
I was just young, so all I remember is the paper headline of the song was Dun Time, Dun Coke, Dundee.
Yeah, and that was the Daily Record. The Daily Record were terrible because he'd obviously had the drug problems, and he hadn't played. He'd been at Atlanta, and he'd had the problems, and I think he basically said he wasn't going to go back and play for them. And I'm sure Ivano and Dario they knew him obviously from their time playing in Italy, so they obviously got in touch, and it was basically come and play for Dundee, and that'll get you back in the limelight, and it certainly did, because he ended up playing for Argentina while he was with Dundee again, and he hadn't been with Argentina for years, so it was a great move for him. And then obviously he goes to Rangers, and then he ends up going Middle East, and he's getting big money.
It was a bit of a circus at that time, was it? To be fair, you got the Stefano going on behind the scenes and stuff, and just everything that was going on.
But that gave Barry a chance, and that team played in Europe. I mean, great.
I've got that programme in my living room.
Going to Albania.
Going
to Albania, but that must have been an eye opener at that time, because it still wasn't a great place.
Oh, I mean, I would probably say it was like a third world country at that time, and we landed in Tirana, and it was motorway for about half an hour, and then it was dirt track for about 3 hours.
Do you think there was any jiggery pokery went on in that match? Remember, UEFA investigated them.
I think they investigated the home game because we won 5-1. But to be honest, I'm not sure.
Could have been, but it didn't really.
No, it didn't.
You watch the game and that. You don't.
It felt as if we played well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I wouldn't say they were a great team.
No.
You know, so for us to win, we weren't surprised at winning. You know, after playing the first leg over there. So I wouldn't think so, but you never know.
And then it got us into the next round against Perugia, which is one of my best memories of watching Dundee. Just a great trip. Okay, we got off the first leg, got off the bad start, getting beat 2-1. But there was a guy playing for Perugia that ended up winning the World Cup with Italy. He was playing for them at that time. Yeah, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he played. He ended up playing for. He won the World Cup with Italy 2 or 3 years later.
I mean. When we went and played there, I mean, we, as a player, you remember the fans and, you know, the amount of fans that were there, and in the streets, you know, it was brilliant to see everybody enjoying, you know, the success together. But when we come back, Jim Duffy was, his standards were so high, he thought we should have went through, you know. Where, you know, at that time I'm thinking, Dundee's not been in Europe for however long, and Perugia are a big team I think they finished 6th that season or something like that in the Serie A.
The next round would have been a good one as well. It was PSV Eindhoven.
Was it?
Imagine how many would have went to that. But to get there, we'll have to talk about the Scottish Cup final to get us into Europe. You take that shot in the first few minutes, hits off the post. Are we winning that game if that goes in?
Oh, 100%. People always talk about me hitting the post, and then I'll say to them, but you do realise I only scored 4 goals in my career. So my expectation of scoring that day was probably 0. So I wasn't surprised it never went in. But, you know, it's one of the things that if...
Everybody says it was just a wee bit to that side there. I'll never forget the noise of it. Just whack.
But the thing was with that, I mean, that was we're doomed to failure with that, I think, because of Lee Wilkie gets the booking in the semi-final and puts him out the final, and you can see him on the park that day. He was devastated, and that's where the goal comes from. He probably would have been. I think he would have been in there to stop him. Biggest man in the
Dundee
park.
were the better team that day. Like I always thought, but it was just,
We did well that day. We played well that day. It was just.
I think we knew Rangers had been out partying as well, and that's the biggest thing is we were gutted because we knew it was the best chance we'd ever had of winning the Scottish again, and we played well, but just no well enough. You know, I think we didn't really cause them a lot of problems.
Nacho had a good chance in the second half with the shot. I mean, on it, if that you've said it, if that goes in at that time, their heads are going down.
I don't think they would have come back because they looked tired at the end up, you know, and it wasn't to be. But I think it was disappointing because we knew that was the best chance we would have had. You know, getting to a cup final and winning it. You know, so
my favourite bit of the sadness of losing it was at the end. Claudio comes on and comes out to you right across to you boys right away.
Yeah,
which that was brilliant.
I think. I mean, he, as I say, he was a good guy. You know, and you know, I think he appreciated we gave him a wee platform to get him to where he was. So good. As I say, he was a good guy.
So after the highs of the lows of the Scottish Cup and the Europe, we'll come up and we'll have our first problems. We were first administration. What was the feeling? What were you thinking? Was there anything were you thinking there's anything going to happen?
No, I think it was all kept sort of away from us. You know, like players are players. They're only interested in football, playing on a Saturday, training, making sure you're ready for the game. So you don't really have to think too much about off the park. It was, looking back, normally what happens is they spend more money to try and cover the money that they've lost. So looking back, you probably could have seen it coming.
I think I spoke to Peter about it, and he kind of went at it with his heart instead of his head. I think he just the excitement got him, you know, just want to keep piling cash in and try and get the best team, and unfortunately that's just what happens when, as you said earlier on, the Bosman was the problem.
Aye.
We couldn't sell the players on.
Yeah,
I think that was what that was going to be.
Aye, well, I mean, Caballero, if he hadn't get the injury and if there wasn't a Bosman, he would have went for good money, you know, because he was.
Rangers were wanting him as well, weren't they?
He was brilliant. I don't know if you remember the goal at Parkgate and the boys come out there and he took it, you know, controlled it himself. He's playing up himself and he scores. You know, he was brilliant. Unfortunately, he got the injury, never really recovered fully. But when you go to the administration, it was horrible.
Yeah,
there was basically just a list written out. You're away, you're staying. You know, it was horrible because these are guys that, you know, well, don't get me wrong, there's a few that had only just come in, like Ravanelli and Craig Burley. But a lot of the boys you'd known for a long time, and they see some of them lose their jobs and see the staff lose their jobs, the coach, some of the youth academy, they wiped it out, you know. It wasn't a nice feeling, you know, and it's the same as the second administration where you feel fortunate you've kept your job, and I think that's where, you know, you've just got to do the best you can for the club at that point.
Do you think the first administration, I kind of think the first administration was probably the worst one, maybe it wasn't, I mean, the fans were galvanising the D for life and all that stuff, but I remember the second one,
the first one was 20 million, wasn't it?
It might have been more than that, you're not really sure, to be fair, but that one to me was probably harder to sort of to take than the second one, because then the second one the fans was real momentum, as we'll talk about, it was a real momentum. Everybody was on the same page. We got them, well, everybody kind of got together to get them out the first time, but the first one's harder to, you'll remember a lot, maybe more than what we will. It doesn't, it's not the one that sticks in the memory. We lost all the players, we kind of
I remember
knew it was going to
a
happen.
young person's brain. Like, you know, I think I was 15 or something at the time, and I just remember the telly and then seeing that list of names of all the boys that we'd lost, and you were just thinking, shit, what now? You know what I mean? Mzadzi was on that list. Like you said, Ravanelli. What was it like to play with Ravanelli?
Well, I mean, again, you wouldn't expect him to be at Dundee. He wasn't there for long, but, you know, again, great player. I think he scored a hat-trick in his debut, didn't he?
Against
And,
Clyde, yeah.
Clyde, aye.
Did the strip over the head.
But you know, I think when you look, I think the biggest thing was we weren't playing particularly well. We couldn't get ourselves. We were losing all these players that probably would have helped us get out of the situation we were in at the time.
How much does it put your head down losing, like you says, all these boys that you played with for years, that your friends, they're gone, you're staying, but like, what's the morale of the team at this point?
It's no great, but I think you've got to be a wee bit. You've got to try and clear your head for the games, because if you keep thinking about it, then I always think that training and games with football is a release. You know, I always treated it, if there was a problem outside the, you know, football, coming to football was a release. You know, you were able just to concentrate on football for 90 minutes, you know, so I think the 90 minutes of the game, you were probably focused fully in the game. It's then when the game finishes and, you know, you're going, well, I hope I'm getting paid at the end of the month, because you don't know. And, you know, you're in administration, and you got to come out of administration, there's a lot of to and fro, you know, to try and get the right deal for the tax man and all that sort of stuff. So, but as I say, when you're playing, anything could be happening. You know, you're just fully focused on the game. So that kind of takes care of itself. It's when you're away from the football, you probably think about it more. You know, you're sitting in the house, you're thinking what's happening. And that's probably the toughest part for anybody that managed to keep their job.
How many were in that squad? Like, how many boys got lost, sorry?
I can't remember that one. I can't remember how. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of a.
Because wasn't it like, obviously when Barry came in as manager in 2010, like with the points deduction, you only had 13 boys, did you? That's all you were allowed.
Yeah, I think that's all it was left that, you know, we could keep on. I can't really remember how big the squad was, but I think we relied on a few of the younger boys as well, that because what they'd done was they get rid of all the high earners, obviously, and kept a lot of the young ones, because they did away with the academy the first time.
Yeah.
Which, again, there's young boys trying to make a career for themselves, and through no fault of their own, lose their job. You know, which that was the hard part for them. So I think they kept a few of them, and they obviously get an opportunity to play in the first team. But I can't really remember how many actually did get released at that time.
Oh, because it'd just be a massive shift, you know what I mean? The way you're used to it, and then all of a sudden it's just like you're just doing what you can to keep it going, basically.
In fairness, Jim Duffy was good, you know, and I learned a lot off him and how to deal with that situation. You know, he just tried to make it as normal as possible for the boys that were still there, and he understood that boys would be down, you know, and treated them with the respect that. I mean, some days it might have been more difficult for others. Some guys can't switch off when they're playing football, they're just thinking about that, you know. So, you know, Jim did a great job in terms of making sure that we were able to go out and play on a Saturday.
Between the two admins, we've still got to Hampden a couple of times as well, for we've got the Gretna and we've got Livingston at Easter Road, and it was Bobby Lynn that I think scored the goal against Hearts. I think it put us into the semi-final.
Was that a free kick?
Yeah, I think it was in extra time, and I think Stephen Presley was playing in that game for Hearts. Sure, he was.
Would have been the time for him, to be fair.
Yeah.
Granite get him Deasley. They're saying he
yeah.
hit the post.
See that game against. We'll go into the game, but at that time, I think. I don't like to badmouth anybody, but I think that was the worst. Well, it was actually, because we finished the lowest we'd ever finished was with the boy Kernahan was the manager, and we finished the lowest we'd ever finished in our history in the league. I think we're fifth in the Championship now, or the first division at that point. But he still got us to the semi-final. We got Gretna, and because they were the darlings of the media, we were never winning that game. I'm sure we should have had a penalty in the first wee while in that game.
I mean, that was. Getting to the semi-final of Scottish, you're playing a team for a lower division, albeit, I mean, they were spending big money at that time. And I think James Grady was playing with them at that time as well.
He was,
and the big doctor was playing up front for them.
Jukers. I mean, they had a good team, but again, we never turned up. I think I scored an own goal actually.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
we never turned up.
it wasn't like a 30-yarder. I think it just come off you.
Yeah, somebody shot it come off the back.
I'm sure we should have had a penalty in that game, and then they got a penalty. Because as I say, because they were the media darlings, it was like everybody was just totally for them, you know.
Yeah.
They had to call him in the sun and everything, that boy. What was it? You know, the smoking Packer farm guy. What was his name?
The boy owned them.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Miles Brooks.
Yeah. Because no long we played them the following season. Remember, we went down to Gretna and we absolutely walloped them. I mean, everybody on the terrace were getting great money on Dundee to win that day. It was 8 or 9-1 for Dundee, and everybody had money on. And even when it was 3-0 on Dundee or whatever it was, everybody's panicking. I was like, stop fucking panicking. We ended up beating them 4, and then they disappeared as well. So that was a whirlwind then, wasn't it? Really.
I think his family decided
he spent his money.
There's no spending anywhere.
Yeah, remember that park he went to? It was just a junior ground.
Yeah, I remember the newsreels from the day and everything. Yeah, because the day after he died, they just closed it and that was it. Yeah. So we talk about the Defiant season.
Yeah, so the lead up to that then is what I remember about that is
What affiliation did you have at the club at the time?
I was a 18s coach.
Yeah.
Jockey had brought us back. Went to Iceland for 3 years, and I come back. I'd got offered a contract in Australia, and I was out in Australia, and Jockey had phoned us to say, listen, there's a job for you in Dundee, taking the 18s if you want it. And I was like, I'll jump at the chance, we'll come back. And he says, you can keep playing if you want, which I did. I played with Brecon, and took the 18s. So I was delighted that Jockey asked us to come back to the club. But then obviously Jockey left, I think it was about a year later, and Gordon Chisholm come in and Billy Dodds. But I think they were trying to do away with the 18s at the time. I'm not sure if they were.
They're not a very popular appointment between fans and a lot of people in the club, to be fair. I know I had a lot said good about that era, but
I was still taking the 18s at that time and playing with Brecon. So again, never really seen the administration coming.
Were you still playing for Brecon when the administration hit? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually played against Dundee in the League Cup.
And we got knocked out. Knocked us out.
We getting penalties.
Yeah.
Sparky missed it, with Griffiths missed. I don't think Gordon spoke to me for about a month after that. He didn't. I can see his point of view. He didn't want me to play, but my thought was, well, if you're worried about a 36-year-old or 34 or whatever it was at the time, then I'm not the problem, you know. But it was one of the things that, like Jim Weir had said to us, are you comfy playing? I was like, well, I'm signed with Brecon, I'm a player. If you want me to play, I'll play. And it was a tough game for.
Proved the point, did you?
I mean, it was more like just want to win. It doesn't matter who I was playing with, I just want to win, and I think it was 2 each on the night.
Yeah,
I think it was 2 each, and then it went in penalties.
I was working that night. My dad was up with my mate, and they were absolutely spewing, totally spewing. What I remember about the start of the administration was the weekend we played Cowdenbeath across there. And I was at the mat. It was awful, and then we got beat for Cowdenbeath, and you just knew someone was not right. You've got Sparky playing for us. You've got a kind of decent base of a team there. Played absolutely terrible. Got beaten, and everybody's wanting Billy Dodds and Chisholm out the door right there and then. And I think it was that. Sure, it was that week. It was right on the Monday. That was it. The administration. Where did that come from?
How did you feel when it first hit? Was it you that had to tell a lot of the players and stuff?
No. The administrator and
Harry
McLean. And again, and I've got to say thanks to Chiz and Dodgy, because they said to us, listen, if you got offered the job, take it, keep yourself in a job. Which is fair play to them, because they must have known at that point they were losing theirs. So, you know, again, as I said before, when it happens, you know, when you keep your job, you're fortunate, you know, and I think at that stage you're saying, right, you know, we need to make sure everything's right. I'd been involved in the first administration, so I knew kind of how players were going to be feeling, and it was just about trying to, you know, make sure that they were ready for the game come the Saturday, which again is no easy. Again, the amount of people that lost their jobs through no fault of their own, you know, it's just a horrible thing to see. But you've still got a job to do, you know, and I think if we don't perform, where does Dundee go? Because you don't get the backing. It's more difficult to get that backing if folk don't buy into what you're trying to do.
We've spoken about this season many times. I've described it as like the best thing I've ever witnessed as a Dundee fan. Like, how you would be feeling at this moment getting given that job? Like, from my point of view, I must have felt like certain doom.
Plus the points embargo.
Yeah, the 25 points.
I think the 25 points came later on, maybe about 3 weeks later, something like that. Me being at Dundee for so long and getting the opportunity to manage, it's like bittersweet, because you're going, well, it's not the ideal situation to begin in as a manager at Dundee, but ultimately that's what I wanted to be at some point. I mean, it was probably like way years before I thought I would be, but I've now in that seat, and you know, you can't celebrate being the manager because folk have lost their job, you know, and ideally I would have been celebrating being the manager of Dundee, but you couldn't do that because
the circumstances
around
it, yeah.
It's not right. So you've just got to get on with the job for that point.
So the 25 deduction came like 3 weeks after that?
Something like that, yeah.
God, so that must have felt an even bigger kick to the balls at the time, really.
Aye, that was...
But that galvanised. I think that'll galvanise as well, because you must have. That gave you
it gave us something to,
you know.
I mean, I tell the story. The first day we go to Stirling Albion, and I've never done a team talk in front of adults before. It's like it wasn't my job. And I'm in the dressing room, and the boys have been out, and you could see the away end filling up. Come back in after the warm up, and I'm doing my final talk. And I'm saying, right, we've got the tactics board in. I'm going, if we get the ball, full backs try and get on it, and we'll try and play and get out. And then I went, do you know what? Listen to that. And all you could hear was the Dundee fans singing. I says, go and do it for them. I says, they support you. That's all you have to do. I think it was one each, you know.
See, the bit at that game, the interesting for me was the Stirling Albion fans that day were brilliant. They collected money and they're in for us.
Yeah.
Then we relegated them. That season, crazy, absolutely crazy.
I mean, they had the buckets out and, you know, collecting for us and gave us, you know, money that went towards paying bills, basically.
I've seen you doing interviews. You did to buy the socks and the washing up powder and stuff.
Myself and Lorraine, I mean, she was a sort of, she did all the cleaning and stuff like that. The two of us went out and she says, listen, the boys need socks. They've run out of white socks, because some of them wear socks underneath their real socks. I don't know why, but that's the way players are nowadays, I don't know. And she says, we've no washing powder. I says, right, come on, jump in the car. And, you know, the two of us went away and just went and bought them. You know, and that, you just did what you had to do. You know, like, I always felt that if you did that, players, although they maybe not have known it was us that bought them, they knew it was there and we were trying, you know, because they knew there was no socks, and then all of a sudden there's socks there, you know, and folk get to see that actually we're trying to do the right thing for you. They buy into it, and once they buy into it, you've then got a team on the pitch that the fans buy into, and it just sort of steamrolled, you know. I think we drew the first 3 games maybe, and it just kept going, and then I think, as you say, that points deduction come in, and
it wasn't long till I remember thinking, there's a chance here we're going to go down, but within about 2 weeks, especially the Partick Thistle game with the red cards and stuff, that game was for me, it was very quickly, that was the turning point. You knew this team's going to be all right. would have been totally all right. Especially with the backing that we're getting, the fans that were following,
Yeah.
the money that was the fans were putting together, the things that was going. It must have been good, bad for the team, but it must have been great for the team seeing everything that was going on.
That it showed them what it meant to the fans. What the club meant to them. The fact that they were trying to make sure everything went the way we wanted it to go. The crowds. It's hard to. I still get goosebumps talking about it because it is just an incredible season.
But you must have been the 25 points. I think at the time was the biggest point deduction any club had ever got in the world. I think nobody. It was always like 10 or 15. Dundee get hit with the 20 odd. That must have been you. It must have been like us against the world at that point, because you must have been saying they're trying to relegate us. They're trying to put us really right show.
I mean, it was an easy team talk.
Yeah.
But we never looked at I don't think we particularly looked at the 25 points. We just looked at the next game. I just kept saying, forget about the 25 points because the next game's the most important. You'll never get to that because if you don't win the next game, it doesn't matter. So we just continued to sort of work on a weekly basis, make sure as many people were fit as we could get.
One of the things I really remember about it was there was a picture of the 30-man squad in Soccer World, and when you look at that, just like 13 boys, that's all we had. Like, how did you manage? Because we spoke to Craig Robertson, we got his story on this podcast before. How were you managing to get in the try list, like Neil McCann and everyone when they came in? And
That's just. Yeah,
Harry had loophole. He was looking at all the loopholes.
Yeah, Harry, was excellent in terms of getting all the what you were allowed to do, what you weren't allowed to do, taking it to the very limit. But he had a reason to do it. I had good contacts in terms of, I knew a lot of people that were maybe out of the game, still training, maybe had a bad season, didn't have a club. I played with the big boy Grecian at Morton. He came in for, I think it was 1 game or 2 games, but he came in and done a job. And the better we did, the easier it was to get people in, because folk wanted to be part of it. Yeah. They could see, by the way, that team's something I want to be part of, and it was brilliant, getting all these guys in. But everybody contributed, for the young boys that come in and played maybe 30 minutes. But without I think I was speaking to Harry not that long ago, and he told me, I never knew this, I think 9 out of that 13 players played every game, which is, that just shows that when there's a need, your players will play. They knew when Sean Higgins, the famous one, playing with a stake cut in his boot because he had a bruised bone in his foot. Would he have done that with 17, 18 players?
There was no injuries.
No
injuries. Nobody got injured. They just played on.
Yeah, and Wee Higgy was brilliant. He was, excellent for me. He done a lot of work that, when he was playing with Sparky scored goals, but Higgy did all the dirty work, and get about and,
got stuck right in.
Everybody
plays their part, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think it's probably. I wish we had the GPS fest at that time, because Harkins had no comeback now, because he's always. Everybody thinks he's lazy. That year he ran as much as I've ever seen him, and because he had to. We never had the players that at that time that would allow we could have any passengers. Gary's a terrific talent, but that season he just took it to a different level. He was brilliant.
There was even all the players that were brought in. Every single one of them did a job. And we said that to Craig. He was very humble about it. And I remember the 3 games. Craig, he never put a foot wrong, and he nearly scored in one of the games.
No, again, I'd seen Craig play with Lockheed in a testimonial game. And I always wondered why he was playing it. No disrespect to Lockheed, because I believe Craig could play a lot higher. And when Harry said, "Listen, there's a chance we can maybe get him for a couple of games or something, get him in," and I wasn't really scared of. I always remember one of the things Jim Duffy used to do with guys that he signed was throw them straight in. You sink or swim, and Craig swam. You know, he was brilliant.
That was a good story he told us. That you phoned him and you couldn't get through to him or something. You got his boss or something, and he says Barry's on the phone. He's like, "What Barry?" and you said to him, "What are you doing tomorrow night?" "I'm going to the match." "You fancy playing?" I mean, schoolboy stuff. You
that's
know,
a beautiful thing about that season. Like, I mean, like stories like that. Like we all said, it could be the season itself could be a film. That story itself could be a film. It was just, I've never seen anything like it. I remember when Sky Sports started to pick up. I think it was like after maybe the 9th or 10th game, and like Jeff and everything every week, like that was going on, like the Dundee scores.
especially when Neil McCann came in, because he was obviously one of the
Yeah,
pundits.
that blew up everything, did it? What a game that was!
That was crazy stuff when obviously Harkin scores the free kick for Miles out, and then McCann gets the winner, and it was just bedlam. Absolute bedlam.
When did you start to feel like? At the start, did it feel they just had this mentality, like we're just going to tackle this? But when did it start to feel like, you know, we're going to do this?
Again, it's one of the ones where nothing to do with football. I mean, I was lucky I had Big Rab. Big Rab was brilliant. He was in the dressing room. He knew how to deal with the players in the dressing room. But him and Debbie had parties every second weekend at their house. You know, and every day there was very rarely the majority of players weren't at it. You know, and it wasn't like we were just there. You know, it was mere building that team spirit, getting everybody together. So him and Debbie were brilliant. They just basically said, right, come round to ours, and it was brilliant in terms of getting everybody together.
It builds a mentality that way, does it?
Yeah, but they'd booked a Christmas night out, and it get cancelled because one of our games would get cancelled and it'd get rearranged, and were saying, I'd say to them, listen, don't make it that week, because the SPFL went, no, you've got to play it. So the boys had lost a lot of money, and they'd already paid deposits for wherever they were going, their hotel. So then we played that game, and then Stephen O'Donnell came to us and he says, listen, Gaffer, can we have a night out? And I was like, aye. He says, when are you going? And he said, oh, we're going whenever it was, a Sunday, just before Christmas. I went, right, no problem, we'll get that sorted. We'll see if we can, try and help you out with, some money to, cover your costs and stuff like that. So myself and Rab had already arranged, we were going to Edinburgh that weekend. Me and him were going out on the Saturday night. So me and him were out on the Saturday night, got up on the Sunday. I'm going to the train station. I went and bought a paper, and I said, look, I'll have a pint while I'm waiting on the train. And Rab says, right, I'm away to meet the boys. I was like, right, have a good night, good day, whatever. So next time Stephen O'Donnell appears at the pub. You're not going home, you're coming with us. I went, my wife's not going for that. I says, I'll need to go home. No. So I then phoned, he says, no, you need to come with us. So I went back to, they were meeting in the hotel, went back to the hotel with them, managed to get the all clear, and we all went out together. So they hired a karaoke room, and always remember, to this day, boys have had a few drinks, but everybody had to sing a song, but then they say, we used to do the huddle and that.
Yeah.
So, right, we'll have a huddle. So we went round every single person in the huddle. And for different, all they had to say was what it meant to them, this season, what it meant to them. And there was a load of different reasons. Some had nothing to do with football. Some were, I want to do it for my mate that lost his job. Some were, I just want to prove people wrong. Every single person said something, and in that there was a couple of them actually in tears because it meant that much to them. And I come out after that, I just left them. I went, right, I'm away. I'll just head back. And I remember coming out of that karaoke place and going, we're staying up. There's no way we're going to, at that point, nothing to do with football, I was just seeing what it meant to them. And I think they'd bought into how much it meant to the fans. And that night, or that day, I knew, that's it, we'll be all right.
Is that your favourite memory from that season? Like that?
Apart from obviously the day that we confirmed it up at Ross County, but that day, and the knowledge that I could see how much it meant to the boys, it's incredible. you know, that feeling to see what it meant to them, you know, and they didn't have to say anything, you know, it wasn't for me, it was for, it always just get kept in amongst them.
It's like that band of brothers mentality, is it? Like, you said it, us against the world sort of thing, yeah.
It was, I think that, you know, rightly or wrongly, and folk can disagree or agree, but the SPFL try to kill the club.
Definitely.
You know, because whether it's purposely, they'll say it wasn't, like obviously they're going to say it wasn't, but 25 points had never been...
Nobody's ever had it.
Nobody'd ever had that. We, if we'd went down, I'm not sure we would have come back.
I said
Really
that's
difficult.
I said that.
It just gets more and more difficult. Thankfully, it never happened.
The fans really, that season, I was going on the Bobby Cox bus with the Shirkies at that point, and some of the trips were mental. Absolutely crazy trips, early mornings, and celebrating daft wins against these teams, you know.
I just
Unbelievable.
remember the spirit of everybody. I can't remember what game it was. We were meant to play United in a friendly or something at Christmas, like to try and raise funds, and snow on the pitch. I seem to remember boys at like 6 in the morning or like 4 in the morning leaving the town and going right up to Dens and shoveling snow off
That's
the pitch.
that's happened. The fans have done that over the right out of Fat Sam's and straight up to Dens to shovel the snow off. Yeah,
I seem to remember that one because Tosha, Stephen Tosha was this place, his brother Tosha, he was rallying everybody up to do it.
yeah, we've all done that. Yeah, but I think it didn't. It really. I think that season it didn't take long. It wasn't. I remember they got the draw against Stirling at the start of it, and I never felt that whole run. I didn't feel we're going to go down.
That's it.
I felt we're going to go down.
23 games unbeaten like that was just incredible.
Okay, what was annoying? The last game at Queen of the South, because we took thousands down there and we got bit. It was the only game
There was
we got
chaos
bit.
that day. Yeah.
Like, if we'd won it and we hadn't had the points deduction, we'd have won the league.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, I was, I wanted to win it, you know, and I was angry after the game, and I look back and I think I should never have been angry after what they'd done for the club, the boys, and, you know, what they'd put into that
Queen of the
season.
South fans roared Dundee after that. It was unbelievable, and they hated us at that point.
How did after you've done it up Queen of the South, like how did you just party to celebrate after that?
Sign me up at Dingwall with, well, we'd actually, I'd said to one of the staff at Ross County, I says, listen, can the boys get a case of beer for the bus back down the road? Thinking, they'll say, aye, no problem, there's a case of beer. And they charged us for it. They charged us 60 quid or something like that for a case of beer. And I'm like, really? And they're like, aye. So we paid it, and the boys had a couple of beers, came back down. I always had a friend's party, a birthday party, so I went to that, but everybody else went into the town and then headed back to Roberts, and I think folk were at Roberts for about 3 days after that. I don't think some of them went home.
That game, that game was good. It was a really sunny day that day, but I think the following week was the party, Partick Thistle.
Yeah.
And that was just the fans got in quite cheap, and there was a big crowd that day.
Yeah.
And I remember Harry McLean on the park with the 25 points, not enough t-shirt and all that stuff. That was the day that were able to sort of party and sort of let it.
I think everybody get shouted onto the park after the game, and I mean I remember every single person stayed. You know, after the game, it wasn't that MD disappeared. Every single person, and I think they actually called out all the staff as well, if I remember right, which was the right thing to do, because we were all in it, you know, together, and the folk behind the scenes that probably didn't get the sort of thanks throughout the season. They would get thanks for myself, but folk didn't realise what they were doing, you know, like out with, you know, the folk that were actually in at Dens, you know, because there was Ali, Laura Hayes, Ali King, you know, they're all doing stuff that out with their job, you know, but they were doing it because they wanted to see the club survive.
That was a good book that came out that Kenny Ross and Jackie Robertson did the whole season, and the photographs in it were brilliant, and you saw the staff, you saw the players, you saw the fans, everything was sort of, it was, I think, from everybody's point of view in it, and it was a really, really well done book.
How mentally draining was that season for you?
Again, you're winning games, so it becomes easier. I think the draining part wasn't football wise. It was like always, I was lucky that Harry was there and Brian Jackson, because Brian Jackson was the administrator, and not once did he come and chat the door. He never came and spoke to me, which told me that I was doing something right for, because he was quite happy the way things were going. But I think just having to worry about training pitches, and we were training at Caird Park, we'd set up at Caird Park and get kicked off while the players were there because we hadn't paid a bill, or the bill hadn't been paid for months. You're set up and you're trying to say to the boys, listen boys, we'll need to move the goals, you're having to carry them right across the other side of the bike track and train on the side of the hill that used to be where the RPC is now. And the thing is, they players never moaned once. They never complained. They just got on with it. But I think for me that was probably draining, and that you want the best, for what you've got, and you're always trying to think ahead of what's going to happen tomorrow, because you didn't know. A lot of it was taken away, as I say, with Harry, because he'd done so much behind the scenes. But there were certain things that you just were out with my control, that you're sitting thinking, but how did I deal with that?
Best season you've had, but you couldn't pay your Sky subscription.
Aye.
It's like, see, in hindsight, it's like, it was really cool to speak about the season the way that we do and how joyful it is and stuff, but looking back on it, it was horrible when it started, and like, it must have been mentally draining for a lot of people. It must have been like, hard, like, you wanted to get Harry on the podcast, you don't want to do it, is he?
I think he'll come on. I think he'll come on eventually.
But yeah, like what he must have went through to do with it, and yeah, it was just a crazy time. Like, it could have went so badly wrong. That's what makes it so special, the fact that, well, look at it now. But I could have easily went another way, and I just think, like, I still find it incredible. Like you said, you were getting goosebumps about it. I get goosebumps thinking about it. I almost had a tear in my eye when Dundee's video they done online, when they interviewed you about that, and just the way you described that. It was crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Don't know what that'll happen again, but I mean, it was a good season.
I know.
I say it comes in threes all the time, doesn't it?
So yeah, the next season, we'll go up. Rangers go down, do we? Is that the year after, or is that?
No,
It's a couple of years off, 2013. That was.
the year after. The year after we finished second. If we hadn't beat Livy in the last game of the season, we would have been third. I think Livy would have been second, and then that summer was the year that we get promoted at the last minute.
It was only 2 weeks before, so it was never going to work out that well. I'm always honest. It was probably we'd built a team that was going to win the championship, and I think if we had kept that team for that year that won the championship, getting into the Premier League, it would have been a different story, because they boys would have played together, they would have had a winning mentality, because we'd pretty much built from scratch again, and getting into the Premier League, they would have been stronger. Even if I look at myself, it's probably too early for me. I'm only into management maybe about 18 months.
You're through right in the deep end.
And
you want to be coach for the 18s.
Aye, and I'm still learning my trade, and I never regret any decisions that I made, but I look back and think maybe I would have done things differently if it ever happened again, because you do things for a reason at that time. But it was what it was, and we probably didn't perform the way MD would have liked.
But we're not ready for it. Look, I think it is a very honest assessment of it. I remember at the time we were not ready for it. I remember getting a load of pelters for United fans, but
It didn't matter. I think by the end they could see. I mean, there wasn't really a lot they could say. I mean, we're totally behind the club, and it was nothing to do with them,
Well, how long have we been in the championship at this point? It was like, what, 7 years?
See, the problem I've got is when you say to me, how long are you in this long? I only started going in 75, and that was the year they'd been relegated for the first time since in their history, basically.
You're the jinx then.
So that's the jinx, yeah. And so that was it. So I can just remember the amount of times, No,
that was the big time for me.
So after that season, you were there the next season, or did you get paid off?
No, I got paid off in February.
No, but loyalty, eh?
Aye.
On you go. You've done a great job, Barry, but off your pop.
I mean, if you look at results, you know, any manager that gets the results probably should get the sack. I don't shy away from that. I think the circumstances should maybe have dictated something different, but guys above me believe in different things, and it was a new chief executive who was in at that time that thought that he knew better. So that's life.
It doesn't matter if the top teams. Look what happens with Madrid. They win 2 cups and they didn't win some, and the bloke gets the sack. So I mean, it's difficult, eh? It's from top to bottom. Being a manager, it doesn't matter about loyalty. It doesn't matter what you've done. You're out the door eventually. That's just what happens in that job. And the list I've got here, you've been a manager of loads of teams, and there's one really sticks out for me. And we were talking about it. Pittsburgh City United. What was the story with that?
But I actually never made it across because it was during COVID. Right. And what had happened was I'd been contacted through a social, I'm not on a lot of social media, but I'm on one particular one, and they contacted me. This guy, Michael Anton Mansour, contacted me and says, listen, I'm starting a team, how would you like to be my head coach and sporting director? And I'm going, that sounds good, don't know who you are, but can you give me some more details? And he's, yeah, I'll send you over, say like what the plan is and how we're going to do it. We've got players. And I was like, all right, and then COVID hit. So he then was talking away and he says, listen, I still want you over here. The league here's going to start. I still want you over here, but we're going to have to fly. You have to get into quarantine in Mexico. And then we'll fly you in from Mexico, and I'm saying to my wife, I can't do this. I said, there's no way I'm going to Mexico when there's COVID and staying in a hotel myself for 2 weeks before I can even fly into the US. So I phoned him up and I said, listen, let's see how things go once COVID's over, and we'll revisit it. So we still, he actually does a lot. I still keep in touch with him. He does a lot of work for charity. The team that he knew owns a team in Gibraltar. He did own a team in Gibraltar, and they actually wore headbands to protect from concussion.
I remember that.
And that was his big thing, was this concussion, and he did a lot of research into it. So when he actually asked me to be joint owner of the team in Gibraltar. And I was like, yeah, I'll help you. But then further down the line I go again, I'm like, I'm just no sure. You know that way you just get a feeling, and there was a lawyer involved, and I was like, nah, that's no for me. So I said to him, listen, you take your, because he'd gave me like 50% shares. I said, take your shares back, I'm not wanting them. He says, right, I'll keep them for you, and maybe in the future you can come back. So I still keep in touch with him, and I'm not sure if he left the club this year. But he'd been in Gibraltar for, I think it's 3 years. And they had a wee bit of success. They were sort of maybe bottom 3 for all the season, but he got them maybe to 4th or 5th in the league. So, it was interesting, but I actually never made it across.
Because you're it's listed as you were manager.
It must say 0 games. It's like
did actually, yeah. They didn't last long. There was not.
No.
They didn't.
No, I think they were only for about a season. I think the Pittsburgh Riverhounds are the big USL team there. Trying to break that market, I think he was always going to struggle. And they were playing in the USL 2 or sort of NSPL, I don't know, but it was like a low league. But he had good plans for it. Whether they would have came off, I'm not quite
so
sure.
From Mexican quarantines to Gibraltar.
So we round it off to like the questions. Like, what was your favourite football game you ever played in?
I mean, I think the one that sticks out is probably the one at Tannadice when Georgie chipped Alan Cole. I think that probably sticks out.
Yeah. And Willie Faulkner took Canada for the first goal.
That probably sticks out as much as any. You obviously you enjoy winning derbies and there are other games. I've just remembered one of the goals I scored was at Motherwell under the Benettis, and I remember that because I'd been at the club for about 8 years, and I've went through, I've just dinked it over the keeper. He's dived early and I've dinked it and I've ran away. And I think it was AVEC at the time was the sponsor. Now, bearing in mind I'd been there for 8 years and I'm kissing the AVEC badge instead of that. So I get a bit of stick for that. But yeah, you know, probably the Derby game.
We were, back then, you never won a Derby in McCall, man. Like, that was usually dominant force against United back then.
I don't think he won. I don't think he won a Derby.
No, he didn't, no. Yeah, that's what we used to sing. You never won a Derby in McCall. Do you remember why the Dundee fans started singing The Great Escape? I asked you this. It's when you were on the team. It was when the Bobby Cocksnap was just built. When everybody was like, I just remember the games. Everybody was
And obviously it went.
No explanation why we started singing that.
And obviously it went into that season, administration season.
No, this was before administration.
I know it was, yeah.
This was before administration. This was like Jockey Scott, the Scots team. Honestly, I used to hate it as my ringtone and everything. I've asked many people that question. He seems to come up with it was the what season was it? You say it was? Well, the first administration.
Yeah. I think probably was around about then.
Before that, I can't remember what it was. What was your favourite? Not your favourite derby. Your favourite team to play against. You know what I mean? You thought like you played. They were not like easy, but you would always say a good game against.
I mean, in terms of grounds, I like playing at Tynecastle. I think it's a great atmosphere at Tynecastle.
It's dead close to it, yeah.
It's close, but not close enough. You know, I just enjoy playing there. I think
over the years we've done all right. We've done even to this day. I mean, we won last year. Obviously, didn't win that season there, but the season before we won. Simon Murray scored, but we've always in that season you're on about I remember the Damchuk one. I remember I had money on the Damchuk to score the first goal. It was 50-1.
Was it
50-1? Yeah. I only had a couple of pound on it, but I remember at the time because the Damchuk. But remember at that period of time, the Damchuk was. He looked like he was going to start scoring goals, and you were getting good money on him for weeks, and then it crashed after he started scoring.
Darius was a good player. You know, but yeah, probably Tynecastle. I like playing at Tynecastle, just for the atmosphere.
I've said it's probably the favourite stadium at go to. Like, it feels dead close to the pitch. It's just the atmosphere's really good there. I hate going to Ibrox or Parkhead. I absolutely hate going there. But Tynecastle's just got this different feel to it.
It's strange. I played at Broomfield, old Broomfield, and it was horrible. It was just the changing rooms were in the corner. It was just horrible. But the fans were that close to the pitch. I went to take a throw in, and the guy behind me punched the ball off the back of my head. And nothing was done. The guy was still there at the end of the game. It was just
they're a horrible support for it.
It was
always have been.
But I mean, Broomfield was it was quite intimidating playing there. You know, you just felt that there was something always got to kick off. You know.
That has a factor to like games and stuff, like where you're going. What about players? Who did you hate playing against?
We spoke about Loudrup was. I mean, he's the best in terms of wide player that I played against. Larson.
What, did you ever play against Lubo Moravchuk? Remember him?
Yeah. I mean, Lubo's ability was brilliant, but because he wasn't lightning quick, I could kind of deal with it. Yeah. But Larson's movement was brilliant. You would think he was next to you, and then you would turn for a split second to look at the ball and make sure you're thinking he's there, and then he would just disappear, and the ball would get played over your head, and he's running through and goal. His movement was second to none. And I was fortunate as well to play against Davy Cooper when his later days when he was playing with Motherwell. And even, I think he must have been 36, around about that age. He was brilliant. He couldn't get close to him. You know, he just, even if I could get close to him, couldn't get the ball off him. You know, so I've been quite fortunate through the years to have played against some, you know, really good players, but they probably stick out a wee bit.
Yeah. And you saying them as the best player you ever played with?
Yeah. Aye. Just in overall, you know, I've played with a lot of good strikers and a lot of good defenders. You know, I was lucky to play with Tony Mowbray, who I learned a lot of at Celtic. You know, midfielders. I played with a lot of good midfielders. I mean, Paul McStay and, you know, playing back in the day at the Celtic team. But Georgie was just, he was brilliant. You know, he just was able to take, you know, the ball anywhere, could make a pass, he could get past people. He worked hard, you know, he didn't mind mixing it. You know, and I tend to talk about foreign players, but, you know, your bread and butter as well. Big Wilkie was brilliant. I mean, his career he'd just been in the Scotland squad, I think, when he did his cruciate. And I think I'm going to say I think he would have moved on into like down south, but knowing him, he wouldn't have moved. But he's a home bird, you know. He just doesn't want to leave Dundee, and you know he that's the type of guy he is. The same with Gavray. Gavray was phenomenal. You know, that's probably the best. I played in midfield at that time, and myself, Gav, and Georgie was probably as a midfielder playing in with they two was excellent. Gav would run all day, get in the box. I won the ball and gave it to Georgie, and Georgie created. You know, it was, you know, real a good three to play with, like in terms of all the attributes you need to have a good midfield.
It's the fucking glory days, is it?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Really is. Well, another question I would ask before we do wrap up. What was your favourite game in the Defiant season? Like one game you could look back and, don't know, it was just...
I think it's hard to single out one. Obviously, the relief when Leighton scores at Ross County and we get over the line is massive.
What did that feel like that week, finally off your shoulders?
I think, again, just about 5 minutes, Leighton was carrying a wee injury, and about 5 minutes before I shouted on Leighton, "Are you all right?" You know, just try to say, "You want to come off?" Or he's like, "No, I'm fine." And a fan shouted to me, "Get him off, he's no fit." And then he went and scores 5 minutes later, you know, and I'm thinking, fair play to Leighton, he stayed on the pitch and he scored the goal. He was carrying injury, I think he ended up coming off with injury, but he's stayed on, he played his part.
Was that strip on that day?
Yeah, that was the one. And so I remember that, the Wraith game, again, when Neil McCann scores and the fans are on the park, and, you know, and Gary Harkins always gets annoyed. I know you remember. See, he always
the free kick was incredible.
It was like when you look back at it, it's a strike. It is, you know.
Top corner.
But probably the Stirling game, you know, just when it started, because you get a feeling for fans. See, like the amount of fans that went through that day. If there was anything that the boys needed to say, right, come on, let's buckle down here. Let's, you know, we know where we are. We know what we've got to do. And the fans were there behind them that day. And I think for that day, like, that was the day that everybody sat, were back. Because I think there was a wee bit disjointed beforehand. You know, I think Dundee were sitting maybe 7th in the league at that point, you know, before the points deduction. So there was a wee bit.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was horrible before.
Yeah.
Before
I think, as you say,
it was horrible.
Was, you know, I mean, I wasn't at the game, but I spoke to Rab about it, and he says coming off the park was horrendous. He says, you know, because it's got that fence on it, and folk were battered on the fence, and you know, there was just something missing.
Yeah, there was someone, you knew someone was going that day. The goal you're saying that Harkins is annoyed about that goal. McCann. It's the same as it's kind of the same as what game was it? The Caniggia game. Caniggia scores that goal. Nobody remembers Ivano Bonetti scored an absolute belting chip into the top corner.
That's right, yeah.
It's funny that you just forget about these things.
The other ones, aye.
You say that, but remember when Kanchelskis stood on the ball for Rangers?
Yeah, against United.
I'm sure Georgie Albert's got a hat-trick that day, but no one ever remembers that at all. I just remember him standing on the ball. My last question, I'm sure Steve will have one or two, but would be, what would your advice be for the youth nowadays?
Youth, like in football, I think they've just got to stay focused. There's a lot of sacrifices you've got to make to be a football player. You know, and your pals might be doing things that you're no sure that they might be going out. If you're a football player, you can't go out, and you've got a choice. And that's the thing, you've got a choice. You either do it, you don't. My mates, well, a lot of guys that went about when Paisley decided to go down one route, I had the decision, do I go that way or do I want to go and play football? And I wanted to go and play football. You know, and it might not be football, it might be something else that they want to do, but that can affect it. So you've got choices, you know right for wrong. And it's about making the right choice for you, not for your pals.
Good advice, man. Steve?
I just think it must have been, when you look back from now and you see all the players that you played on, some of the unbelievable players, and you were a great player yourself, when you're back at St Mirren, not getting the chance to go to St Mirren, you've been in your wildest dreams thought you would have ended up at Dundee and you're associated with a club for the other side of the country.
You should get a statue outside that new stadium if they've ever built it. You should. I mean, dead serious. You should. They're doing all these different other plans for it. Like, I think you should get a statue there.
I think, I mean, I feel,
very humble guy.
I feel privileged to have been given the opportunity to play for as long as I did and to manage the club, you know, because there's a lot of guys didn't get the opportunity to go out and play at Dens. I played a lot of games, you know, and you've got to be fortunate to be able to do that, you know, feel fortunate and privileged that I've been able to stick at it for as long. And the club's played a massive part in my life, you know, and like through thick and thin, they've helped me as well. You know, Peter and Jimmy were brilliant with us, you know, when I first come up, or, you know, when they took over. And, you know, all the managers I've played under, I've been lucky to learn off them all, good and bad, you know, but you learn. So it's been an absolute, like, joy to be up here and, you know, again, fortunate to have had such a good career here and been able to manage the club.
You had that many games for Dundee as well, and you never even looked like you were. There wasn't many times you were out with that team, and you played alongside Champions League winners, World Cup semi-finalists, players, boys that won the Copa Libertadores in Argentina, Georgian captains. You played alongside a Damchuk, Polish international, and you were never out with that team, so you must look back and be proud of that.
I think, you know, there's a lot to be said for the hard work, you know, because it was hard work. And again, if I get back to it, made a lot of sacrifices, you know, that are small in terms of the overall world, but in terms of where you want to get to and where I wanted to get to, you know, they become bigger. So, I think, you know, working hard allowed me the opportunity and having the right mindset to be able to go and say, no, I'm here, I'm going to make sure I'm in that team every week. And even in I trained the way I played. I just worked as hard as I could, and you know, I think managers like that. They need guys that are going to be 6, 7 out of 10 every week. You know, they're not going to be 2 one week and 10 the next, and then 2 for 5 weeks, and then you know, they need somebody that's just going to go and be told that's your job, go and do it, and they don't have to worry about them. They just know that they're going to do what they've got to do. And I kind of fell into that sort of, you know, that was what I was good at, you know.
You know, he always goes on about like glory teams of me to like in the 70s or the 80s or whatever else, teams I never seen. Like any glory team, Dundee team that I can ever think of, you were in. Like for me personally, like it's like football means like just a bit more to you when you're younger. You know what I mean? You look up to like the players, and I remember I seen Lee Walkie in Tesco's, and it was like I'd met like, don't know, Liam Gallagher or something. You know, I mean, I was starstruck because I met Lee Walkie. But yeah, I look back on all that, and it's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's been brilliant to quiz you about the Defiant season and all the players. And anything else we should ask before we go?
No, I just think he once he did his managerial career, and he got the prestige of managing Aldershot, and he did all right for them as well, you know.
I mean, it's been quite varied. I've always wanted to be full time, so all the clubs I've left were I always left friends. You know, I never let Arlo, I still keep in touch with the chairman's not there, he's now the head of the SFA, Mike, but I still keep in touch with him. You know, the guy, the chairman that was at Aldershot, he just left last year. Still keep in touch with him. You know, because I think people just like honesty, and like they might not agree with what you're saying, but if you say it and they don't agree, then it's fine. I don't really bother if you don't agree with what I say, but I would rather say it than sit and be thinking. You know,
as long as they listen to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just being in front of the people that, and they respect it. You know, they respect the honesty of saying what you feel. They might not like it, but you don't have to like everything. Actually, the chairman at Wraith, I think he's the owner, or he was the owner, said to me and you are too alike. He says, but he says, we'll no get on. He says, but we don't have to get on. Because he knew I was honest, and he knew that what he would get out of me, he knew that we would be at loggerheads all the time, but he didn't mind that because he knew I was being honest about it, you know. And you know, it wasn't through him that I left. It was, you know, different reasons I left that, which again the chairman at the time understood. Like, he's passed away now, but he's phoned and congratulated me once I got one, like a job. You know, he was quite happy for us, you know, so it's always good to know that.
Good to see through Chris, after all these different teams he's managed and teams he's played for. Obviously he did really well at Valor and Iceland and all the rest of it. Dundee's his team.
Aye, it is. Like, I've been up here that long now, it is.
So you're always going to be Sir Barry Smith in Dundee. A lot of people say that. You remember, last thing, Dundee made the mistake of letting me be in hospitality a couple of weeks ago, and I was steaming when I seen him on the thing, and I was like, there's Barry Smith. I was like, I'll make it a photo. And you were really nice to me, even though I was drunk. So yeah, just in a really nice, been very humble conversation, the way you've spoke about that, and yeah, this is, as a podcast, like, this has been, I've been looking really forward to this one. Speaking about that Defiant season and everything that's followed from it is just, it still blows my mind. It does. It still blows my mind how that happened, to be fair. I don't think we'll ever see anything like it again.
I hope no.
It
was great. I hope not.
I don't think it'll happen again because, you know, I think they just made a rash decision at the time. And, you know, we should have been punished, like, because we didn't pay our taxes. That's fine, you should be. But I think what they tried to do was
destroy the club.
You know, it was beyond that.
Step in Barry Smith, and that didn't happen.
We helped save. Well, that was the main thing.
Well, this has been episode 15 of the Dundee Show podcast. I'd like to thank you, Barry. It's been a pleasure for you to come in and pick your brain, mate. And yeah, from me, Steve, Declan, and Barry, go enjoy your Sunday.